just an update of the events of yesterday and what an impact they had. Of course, today is a normal school day, but some schools are still warning that they'll continue a bit of their lessons online because of the fear of continued protests today. But that's the latest that we know. Of course, they're receiving a statement last night from the National Police Service indicating that 11 people had died by the close of the day. Following the protests, 52 police officers injured. This is according to the National Police Service. They're also saying that there are civilians that had been injured. They put the number, let me just look at that. So civilians injured are 11. Arrests made were 567. 52 police officers were injured. 12 police vehicles were damaged. 3 government vehicles were damaged. And 4 civilian vehicles also damaged. And I'll be looking at the figure for the persons or civilians that had been injured, which according to the National Police Service is lower than that of the police officers. This morning, I have in studio Senator Hilary Sigei from Bomet County. Good morning, Senator. Good morning.
Thank you for having me around.
It's been a while. How have you been?
Serving the great people of Bomet, both in the county as well as in the Senate. Yeah. And doing what we are expected to do and try our best to do in legislation, representation, and oversight. Okay. But I'm happy to be here.
Great to see you. Mheshimiwa Geoffrey Wandeta is the Member of Parliament for Tetu constituency. How are you doing?
Good morning, Sam, and good morning, my viewers. I'm doing very well.
Oh, great. And Dan Manzo is the Senator of... or is it Senator from Makueni County? Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
I heard there's a difference between Senator of and Senator from. Then you have Fred Okango, who is a communications consultant, one of the departments. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Now, I want us to begin by highlighting, we'll look at the papers later on, but first I want us to highlight on an important issue of what we were discussing yesterday about the constitutional amendment bill that has been passed by the National Assembly to ring-fence or to entrench the National Government Constituency Fund in the Constitution, the Senate Oversight Fund in the Constitution, as well as the National Government Affirmative Action Fund in the Constitution. I'll begin with you, Senator Manzo. What your thoughts are, because it looks like when we spoke to some of the members of the National Assembly yesterday, they sound to suggest that you actually need a Senate Oversight Fund so that you're able to do your work in oversighting the counties especially. Do you agree with that?
Well, Sam, you see, we have 3 functions, which is oversight and legislation and the representation. And in my opinion, I think we are sufficiently paid for that. I've been in the National Assembly for 10 years, and I know, and I'm aware that the CDF is a very, very important fund. It is actually the only money you can see for government on ground and what goes to the people. It is also clear that any member of parliament who interferes with the CDF, they have a very big problem with the people. It's very much oversighted by the people themselves. And it goes to every village. It improves schools, it improves security. And it's money which should remain there. But the how is a problem. The courts have already held that there is a problem because it's part of executive work. And I want to give you an example. If you try with the Minister of Education to, sometimes, you know, you make proposals to Minister of Education. It takes a long while for them to ever deliver. And for a classroom, the villagers will do with 800,000 or $1 million. They do it with about 2 million shillings. It's next to impossible even to get the Minister of Education developing, you know, a school or a classroom or anything. It takes a lot of strain and a lot of complications, and therefore CDF actually works. But then the problem is the law, and although they've been given by the courts up to 2026 to wind it up, I would suggest to National Assembly that they extend that to 2028, and then through the courts. And then after all that has been done, for this to be entrenched in the Constitution, it has to go to the people. It has to go to referendum. It could be one of the referendum questions in the next elections. but the way they want to put it, it's like Senate has been given a bribe so that it can approve this illegality. This can only best be done by the people through a referendum. It is good to do the bill as they have done it, to come to Senate. After that, if it goes through, it will go to the president, but the president may also refer it back to the House or pend it for referendum.
Can he, knowing it's a constitutional amendment bill, does he have any chance of, if it is passed by the two houses, does he have any chance of referring it back to the House?
Yeah, for for purposes of compliance with the Constitution, the president has that power. Because this is a bill, although it's popular, it doesn't comply with the Constitution. So it means you must amend the Constitution through the people to be able to entrench this fund and to specify, to make sure that it does not end up being, the Parliament doing executive work. Parliament should oversight, and that was CDF should remain. That should be the role of a member of Parliament. None of the members of Parliament sign a check. But they help in making sure that there is fair distribution within their constituency of this particular fund, which has its own management system. It has a CEO, it has a board, it has chairman, but the member of Parliament makes sure that the money is fairly distributed to the people. So we have to make sure that the member of Parliament does not end up doing executive work.
So help us here, because yourself and Senator Sigei are advocates of the High Court. When the High Court decides and says that the constituency is a unit of representation, not a unit of service delivery, then, of course, some amendments that have been taken to recognize a constituency as a center for service delivery in the context of national government, and therefore the NG-CDF law that we have. But now the National Assembly is moving away from all that and coming to now put the NG-CDF into the Constitution. Is it possible to have an unconstitutional amendment through a constitutional process?
You see, there's what can be amended by Parliament in the Constitution. And in fact, no single amendment has ever gone through. This is the first one. And there have been very many proposals. In fact, one by Kaluma lost by 1 vote. So Kenyans, even through Parliament, have not amended the Constitution so far. This is the very first time. And that's why the test is coming in, because it's coming to Senate. And that you see the ultimate way of amending without changing the main structure of the Constitution, that can only be done through referendum, but not through the House. This is too heavy for the House, in my opinion. Okay.
Senator Sigei, your thoughts? I'll come back to you more, Mheshimiwa Ndito.
Thank you very much, Sam. I first of all want to appreciate the role that the Constituency Development Fund plays. The constitutional amendment bill that has been passed by the National Assembly seeks to introduce 3 financial laws, in this case the CDF, GAF, and the Senate Oversight Fund. And let me start first of all by a comment that you have made as regards the constituency being a representation of the people and not a service delivery unit. Granted, Sam, that is the truth, and that is actually a fact. But then, when we look at how service delivery largely has been provided through the CDF, the National Assembly has every reason to say, look, we need to anchor this in the Constitution, particularly having had litigation on this matter over time. And therefore, the National Assembly is seeking for an avenue with which this fund can still be utilized to serve the people. And it is true when Senator Manzo says that part and most of the services that we feel on the ground is from the CDF. Name them: classrooms, bursary fund, certain road networks, and a number of other institutions have benefited directly or indirectly from this fund. And that is the basis upon which the National Assembly is saying we need to anchor it in the Constitution. There's been so much litigation on this matter up to the highest court in this country, the Supreme Court. And we also have matters which are pending right now, and in specifically regarding this particular bill that has now been passed by the National Assembly. The Katiba Institute have gone to court, and their argument is basically to say, let's not create another fourth arm of government. To them, if you have the legislature, you have executive, and you have judiciary, those are three arms of government, right? Yeah. Then there are two tiers, the national government and the county government. Creating a fund now, like the CDF, will be doing a third one in their argument. I'll leave it at that for that moment because it's an active matter in court.
Okay.
And so this bill has been passed. Yep. We definitely will have to get it communicated to the Senate. I do not think it's been communicated officially, of course, because we are in recess. And once it gets down to the Senate, definitely the House will have to deal with it. There are certain arguments that this is a matter that will require a referendum.
Yeah.
Article 255 and 256 of the Constitution provides for when a referendum can be conducted and what kind of legislations can be amended by Parliament. That is something that we will deal with when the matter gets to the Senate. And therefore, we shall wait upon this bill to be communicated. We deal with it. And an interesting fact here, Sam, is that Senate in itself has been in existence from the year 2010.
Yeah.
It is now it's 15 years old, and its role is defined in the Constitution. Oversight, legislation, and representation. The oversight aspect of the role of the Senate has been happening for those 15 years. This is the arm that is seeking, the bill seeks to fund, to provide a Senate fund. The Senate has two constitutional amendment bills that has drafted. One is sponsored by Senator Okongo Omogeni, Senior Counsel. It is currently before the House. Over other provisions, the specific ones that this particular constitutional amendment bill is seeking is to extend the mandate of the Senate. It seeks to amend from Article 93, 94, 95, 96, 110, which are largely provisions on the role of the Senate and role of Parliament as a whole in legislation and in revenue sharing.
Yeah.
At the moment, still, we have an active proposal that has just been published, sponsored by the leader of majority and the leader of minority, in seeking to also enhance the role of Senate in legislation. So that I know you are aware we've been over time legislating on aspects on money bill, aspects on budgetary allocation and revenue sharing, where Senate in law does not take role in matters money bill. We have legislated to the Supreme Court on what a money bill is all about. What is this animal called concurrence by the two speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate? What are matters that affect counties? And
you mean Senate has no role in money bills, or money bills must start at the National Assembly? Which is which?
Actually, now what we are seeking in the proposal is that money bill can start from the National Assembly, but at least the Senate would have a role in it. For instance, we are arguing that if we are talking about revenue sharing at the national level, that in itself is a money bill, for example. And this resource...
DORA? Division of
Revenue? Yes, Division of Revenue Allocation, and that is one of the matters that comes as a money bill. That now, in its definition...
National Assembly.
Yes. Now, but you are saying it should begin either of the houses, but if it must start from the National Assembly...
Why would you want that? Because, I mean, it's the National Assembly that knows how much total revenue you have, how much total expenditure we have.
That is fine, Sam. Yeah. The role that we are seeking is, it is not just to have the Senate as a conveyor belt.
Okay.
And so this...
So you want a more defined, substantive...
Exactly.
But let me take you back to, you're saying that this bill by the National Assembly would trigger 255. Please lead me to the specific provision that you think must trigger and therefore requiring a referendum.
What we are saying is we have got the national government and the county government, right?
Yeah.
In the finding of the court, in fact, it said that the argument that you had advanced earlier on about the second layer is service provision at the national, service provision devolved. Roles of the national government and the county government.
Yeah.
If then we have a third tier being the constituency, then it's another arm of government. That is an argument that has been put forward, and therefore it changes the structure that will then trigger Article 255 that requires Kenyans to participate. Okay. For example, Sam, when that argument was pushed in the matter that was litigated in court, that was part of the finding of the court, that this could be one aspect that we might want to advance referendum through ensuring that Kenyans fully participate in a referendum.
Okay.
And it's still a live matter. That's why I said earlier on that Katiba Institute
details, yeah,
has even gone back to court. And the argument is basically substantively tied on that aspect.
Yeah. So, Mheshimiwa Wandeto, I don't know if you were in the House when this was passing.
Yes, I was. This happened last week on Tuesday.
Yes. So,
House.
When you listen to these two arguments, because now it's out of your hands, it's gone to the Senate, and they're making they're advancing an argument here that you're creating an extra layer, but also that it's a sweetener or a bribe to the senators so that they can agree with you.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Sam, first of all, I like what my two senators have said in terms of the importance of CDF, because we are starting off from a good place, that everybody understands the importance that this fund, now I think 20-something years later, has done across the country. Yeah. Sam, if you come to Teto, my constituency, we have now completed about 36 JSS laboratories, grade 7, 8, and 9 classrooms, fully renovated. Some of them are, built, from scratch. We were able to give about 12,000 children bursaries, and we are renovating schools and doing very, very many things, including some investments in things like electricity. CDF is actually one of the funds, Sam, that you do not need to walk anywhere more than 500 meters, even from this Citizen radio station. If we walked to the nearest primary school or the nearest secondary school from here, we will be able to see some sort of CDF project in terms of a renovated police station, a school that is, a classroom that has been built, a chief's camp, and things like that. And actually, when you compare the little money that goes to CDF, and some allow me, just indulge me to give this background, because it's important before I answer your question. If you look at the little money that goes to CDF, for example, in my constituency, I just get about 160 million shillings. And I compare sometimes with what my county gets, okay? And it's a comparison that can be made across the country. What counties are getting versus just what members of, CDF funds, the constituency, the development fund kitties are getting, and what they are able, to achieve. Sometimes it is becoming very difficult to identify any tangible county products, county projects, despite billions of money being pumped. I think right now we've pumped...
Even though, up to 70% they use it on recurrent affairs.
Which is sad. And actually, that's a sad thing. Yeah. If we were to one day then kill a CDF and put all this money in counties or even into, the executive, what is going to happen. A lot of this money is going to end up, paying salaries and buying tea and flowers, at the expense of our children's learning and things like that. But to your question, Sam, I think the saddest day in Kenya for parents, for our people out there, will be the day we kill CDF. Because finally we'll have killed at least the only last fund that works in this country. And last week, we passed a constitutional amendment because, every time the court has said CDF is unconstitutional. So parliaments, in this wisdom, are led by, in a motion sponsored by Otiende Amolo Senior Counsel and Chepkonga, You know, we passed a constitutional amendment to entrench CDF, GAF, and you know, the Senate Oversight Fund, which I'm surprised the senators are now disowning. Yet it was their creation, but we are going to come to that.
Why do you think it's important, the Senate Oversight Fund?
I will explain. The Senate Oversight Fund, these people have been saying, I mean, unless Senate want to be complicit, we all know the challenges that we are having in counties in terms of, some have said in this show, the only thing that we seem to have successfully devolved was corruption. We all know that corruption is a big issue in counties. Nobody denies that. And the senators having a certain amount of money, they'll be able to deploy or even create legislation to deploy some sort of resources out there that can make it easy for them to know what is happening in counties, for them to know, to be able to engage, governors in a proper way, be able to engage the county assemblies, be able to do some sort of capacity building across the county so that citizens are also aware about what is happening.
I think
in their
previously
counties.
The courts have decided that it is not the work of the Senate to supervise county assembly. The primary oversight of the county is by the county assembly. Then the Senate will look at the interests of the counties. How do you demarcate that at a time that you're creating a fund saying that they need to go to the locations? Isn't that the work of the county assemblies?
A senator is an elected representative of the people. How do they conduct their business in the counties? How do they even engage the citizen, at least without some sort of structure? If Dan Manzo here wants to call a meeting, how do he even fund it? Let's say a meeting just to tell citizens about what is happening in the county, a meeting just maybe explain to the citizens how they arrived at the 415 billion or the 435 billion and how much money is going to Makueni and what are the sort of things that they have agreed to do in Makueni. Then, if he would say today he does not have any role to the people as far as the representation is concerned, then I think it's almost saying that the senator is not a required person.
But is representation on the ground or in the House? I mean, how does that work?
Representation is both ways. It's a forward and backward integration. You have to be with the people. Okay, because I go to my constituency, I hold sometimes public participation forums, when I'm less...
So how are you facilitated to engage the people?
If I'm doing a public participation forum on projects, it is funded by CDF. It's actually a legal allowed function. Every 2 years, we go to the people and we hold all these meetings to be able to identify projects and programs that we want to focus on.
So Senator Manzo, you need a fund to facilitate your meeting. I'll get... Sorry. You need a fund? Apologies for that.
Well...
Yes or no, do you need a fund to facilitate your meetings in Makueni?
What has been happening currently is that, part of that oversight is done by assemblies. Yeah. They do public participation. And a lot of times when we go down to the people, we just use part of our salaries. Unfortunately, there was no proper consultation from the National Assembly when they were putting this fund.
Okay.
If that was properly consulted, then...
let's keep it short because I need to take a short break. And when I come back, I'll listen to Fred Okango on his thoughts because he's not in any of the houses.
You will also
allow me just to finish.
Sorry, I need to take a break. It's 7:04.
Okay.
I'll come back to this conversation. We're not done yet, so stay tuned for that. And I don't know what your thoughts are about entrenching the NG-CDF, and I'm saying NG-CDF because that's what they are calling it, not longer NG-CDF, into the Constitution, introducing a Senate Oversight Fund, which was an idea floated by President William Ruto back in December 2022, and of course entrenching the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, a fund that is being implemented under the supervision of women representatives into the Constitution. Stay tuned for that and share with us your feedback at Citizen TV Kenya. Sam Gituku, the to use the Citizen daybreak. Back in a moment.